So imagine discovering an ancient text that basically claims human warfare wasn't actually invented by humans at all.
Right.
Like the concept of the sword, the shield, the breastplate, all of it
hmm
was handed to us by rogue angels descending from the stars.
Yeah, it sounds completely wild.
It really does. And,
Yeah.
imagine that same text claims those exact same fallen angels also introduce humanity too, like eyeliner, root-cutting magic, and astrology.
Treating vanity and weapons of mass destruction as equal corruptions of the human soul.
Exactly. I mean, throw in a meticulously detailed 364-day cosmic calendar, literal mountains of flesh in the form of, like, 4,500-foot-tall giants roaming the earth.
Oh, and an entirely alien architecture of heaven.
Right. You would probably assume you were reading some highly inventive modern science fiction, but you wouldn't be.
No, you'd be reading a text that secretly shaped the ancient worldview.
A text that was systematically hunted down and hidden away from the Western world for a millennium. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today our mission is to explore one of the most fascinating suppressed texts in history.
Yeah, we are going deep into the complete Book of Enoch. Specifically, we're looking at the translation by Dr. J. Winter.
Which is just an incredible resource for you if you're trying to understand this stuff. But before we jump into the really crazy details, we should set the stage here.
Definitely. I mean, we need to establish a clear framework because the Book of Enoch is inherently a deeply religious and ancient document.
Right? It's woven from the cosmological anxieties of its time.
Exactly. So our objective today is not to, endorse a specific theology or to preach its contents as spiritual truth. We're approaching this deep dive entirely impartially.
Yeah, just as an exploration of a phenomenal historical and literary artifact.
Yeah.
We're just looking at what the text actually says.
Right, examining the mechanics of its universe, the philosophical questions it raises about the origin of evil, and just the sheer narrative audacity of the source material.
And the audacity is really what makes this the ultimate shortcut for anyone trying to understand ancient history.
Oh, absolutely.
You might be wondering why you should dedicate time to this bizarre, suppressed text featuring kaiju-sized monsters.
Which is a fair question.
Right. But the reality is the echoes of this book are literally everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you have never read a single page of Enoch, you live in a society that still fiercely debates the foundational ideas it introduced.
It influenced some of the most famous historical texts we have. But to understand that influence, we have to look at the suppression first.
Yeah, the void it left behind when it was erased. So let's get into the erasure, because it's one of the most fascinating survival stories in antiquity.
It really is, and it centers around the shifting definition of just a single word, apocrypha.
Apocrypha.
Right. Yeah, because in our modern lexicon, if you describe a story as apocryphal, you are essentially calling it a myth.
Like you're saying it's of doubtful authenticity, a rumor, basically.
Right, a fabrication. But in the ancient Greek world, the word simply meant hidden or secret. And what is crucial to understand about the ancient literary mindset is that being hidden was not a mark of falsehood.
Wait, really?
No, it was actually the highest compliment a text could receive.
Wow. So it's essentially like classified intelligence.
Exactly. The idea was that the knowledge contained within the text was too potent or too exalted, or just too complex for the general public.
Oh, I see. We actually see this attitude mirrored in standard historical texts from the era, right? Like the books of Daniel and Ezra.
Yeah, in those narratives, you have explicit instructions where a prophet is told to take 70 specific books and hide them away.
Right, reserving them only for the wise among the people.
And the Book of Enoch originally occupied that exact exalted space. It was like the VIP section of ancient literature, the deep lore meant for the initiated.
But the problem with deep lore is that as a religion institutionalizes, it requires standardization.
Yeah, things get messy. Over the centuries, religious orthodoxy began to shift towards a more streamlined, philosophically neat narrative.
And the Book of Enoch is anything but neat.
It's incredibly chaotic. It presents a universe where angels, beings that later theologians desperately wanted to categorize as purely spiritual, incorporeal messengers of God, are depicted as having physical bodies.
Right, and they experience lust. They physically come down to earth, interact with human women, and sire biological offspring.
Which is just a visceral, messy intersection of the divine and the physical, and that absolutely infuriated later religious scholars.
I mean, I can see how that completely shatters the architectural blueprint of a clean theology.
That destroys it.
If you are a later church father trying to build a cohesive doctrine based on an all-powerful, perfectly ordered divine realm, you can't have a rogue faction of angels acting like chaotic Greek gods.
Right, coming down to Earth and messing with human genetics. It's way too unruly.
So it became an active threat to the established theological narrative.
Precisely. You know, the Hellenization of theology leaned heavily into Neoplatonic ideals. The physical world was seen as corrupt, and the spiritual world was pure and untouchable.
And Enoch just obliterates that boundary.
Completely. We actually have historical records of figures like Philastrius openly condemning the text as outright heresy.
Yeah, and the pushback wasn't just passive disagreement, right?
Yeah.
It was aggressive suppression.
Super aggressive. In the 2nd century AD, Rabbi Simeon ben Jokai went so far as to literally pronounce a curse upon anyone who believed in the book's teachings.
Just for believing the teachings regarding the physical fall of angels. That is the ancient equivalent of thermonuclear historical cancellation.
Yeah, you don't just get your book taken out of the library. Anyone who even conceptualizes your ideas gets cursed.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
And the result of this systematic denunciation is that the text is banned, physical copies are likely burned, and for roughly 1,000 years, it completely vanishes from the Western world.
It basically becomes a ghost story.
But history is fragile, and that makes it incredibly unpredictable. Because while the Western world actively forgot the Book of Enoch, the Ethiopic church in Africa did the exact opposite.
Yeah, they didn't just preserve it, they elevated it. They kept it integrated right alongside the standard books of their Bible.
Because they never experienced that theological shift that required its destruction.
Exactly, which sets the stage for a rediscovery narrative that feels like something out of an Indiana Jones movie.
It really does. Fast forward to the late 18th century, 1773. Rumors have been percolating through European academic circles that a complete copy of this forbidden text might still exist in the Horn of Africa.
And this Scottish explorer, James Bruce, decides to chase the ghosts.
Right. He journeys to Ethiopia, and the rumors turn out to be entirely true. He manages to secure 3 complete, meticulously preserved Ethiopic copies of the Book of Enoch.
He brings them back to Europe, and finally in 1821, Dr. Richard Lawrence at Oxford produces the first English translation.
So for the first time in a millennium, the modern world gets to read the forbidden cosmology.
And the immediate reaction from the academic establishment was profound skepticism.
I bet. They probably couldn't believe it was real.
Yeah, for decades after that translation, many scholars argued that the text had to be a modern forgery, or at least written long after the birth of Christianity.
Right, because of the terminology. It contains concepts and titles about a cosmic judge that sounded too similar to established Christian theology.
Exactly. The assumption was someone wrote Enoch backward, using later Christian ideas to fake an ancient Jewish text.
They assumed it was retroactive continuity. But then the mid-20th century delivers the ultimate vindication of the book's antiquity.
The caves at Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Oh man, this is the watershed moment for historical validation.
It really is, because among the thousands of fragments hidden in those caves, archaeologists found pieces of 10 different Enoch manuscripts written in Aramaic.
And the dating of those fragments proved definitively that the Book of Enoch was in circulation well before the time of Jesus.
Right. It was not a retroactive forgery. It was the blueprint.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Because this discovery at Qumran forces us to reconsider everything.
Yeah, it really does.
The community living at Qumran, the Essenes, they weren't just casually reading Enoch. It made up a massive portion of the scrolls found there. Did anyone else in the ancient world take it seriously?
Oh, massively. But to understand the Essenes specifically, I have to look at their psychology. They were an ascetic, isolationist sect.
Right, they believed the mainstream temple establishment in Jerusalem had become hopelessly corrupt.
Exactly. Spiritually dead. So they retreated to the desert to prepare for the end of the world, viewing themselves as the last bastion of righteousness.
And for a community with that apocalyptic mindset, Enoch is the perfect theological anchor.
Yeah, it fundamentally argues that the world is under the control of corrupt, rogue spiritual forces, and that a massive divine intervention is imminent to wipe the slate clean.
It gave them a cosmological framework for their own alienation, which shatters the idea that Enoch was just some fringe sci-fi. It was a cultural pillar.
A massive one, and the breadcrumbs of its mainstream acceptance are hiding in plain sight.
Right. Take the standard biblical canon, the Book of Jude, verses 14 and 15. The author doesn't just allude to Enoch.
No, he directly quotes him as an authoritative prophet.
Jude literally writes, Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied, and then drops a direct quote from the very first chapter of the Book of Enoch, concerning the Lord coming to execute judgment.
That direct quotation demonstrates that the writers of the canonical texts viewed Enoch as equally authoritative to texts like Isaiah or Genesis.
Which is huge. But the linguistic influence goes even deeper, touching early Christian translation.
Yeah, there's a deeply illuminating translation discrepancy in the King James Bible regarding the Gospel of Luke, specifically Luke 9.35.
Oh, the transfiguration narrative.
Right. The King James Version translates the voice from heaven as saying, "This is my beloved son, hear him." But if you look at the earliest original Greek manuscripts, the phrase is actually, "This is my son, the elect one."
The elect one. That is an incredibly specific title.
It is the defining title of the Book of Enoch. The phrase, "the elect one," is used 14 separate times in the Enochian text to describe a pre-existent heavenly judge.
So by using that exact title, the ancient author is making a deliberate connection back to Enochian theology.
Exactly, like a flashing neon sign. The early audiences hearing that would immediately map the concept of the Enochian cosmic judge onto Jesus.
Furthermore, foundational early church fathers, Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, they all heavily referenced and supported the Enochian writings,
They treated its cosmology as profound structural truth.
which forces a radical recalibration of how we view history. I mean, the line between what is universally accepted as canon and what is burned as heresy is incredibly thin.
It really just comes down to human curation. Councils of men voting, centuries after the fact, on what ideas fit their political or theological needs.
And we are looking at a text that provided the very vocabulary for the religions that survived, yet it barely survived to reach our ears today.
It highlights the resilience of ideas. You can burn the physical scrolls, but if the concepts have infiltrated the cultural groundwater, they survive.
So, having established the monumental historical weight of this text, we need to examine the narrative core that got it banned.
Right, the inciting incident of this entire cosmic drama, the descent of the Watchers.
This brings us to the summit of Mount Hermon. The text describes an order of 200 angels, explicitly referred to as the Watchers.
Yeah, the children of the heaven.
Yeah.
And their entire mandate is observation and spiritual administration.
But they look down at the earth, they see the daughters of men, and they experience this profound, corrupting lust.
They literally decide to abandon their cosmic station to choose human wives. And the psychology of their rebellion is fascinating here.
Because the narrative doesn't portray them as mindlessly evil.
No, it portrays them as highly aware of the legal and cosmic ramifications. Their leader, Samjaza, is actually deeply hesitant.
Right, he essentially says, I know you desire this, but I fear that when we reach the earth, you'll lose your nerve, and I alone will be left to pay the penalty for treason.
It's the ultimate conspirator's dilemma. He needs
Yeah.
insurance. He demands shared culpability.
So the 200 angels gather on Mount Hermon, and they execute a binding pact. The text says they swear an oath and bind themselves by mutual imprecations.
Basically reaving curses upon their own heads if anyone backs out. The source material even meticulously lists their hierarchy chiefs of tens with incredibly alien-sounding names like Arakba and Kokobo.
They solidify their treason, they descend, they take human wives, and the contamination of the earth begins.
And the biological consequence of this unauthorized intersection is the Nephilim, the giants.
This is where the scale of the text becomes truly horrifying. We aren't talking about 8-foot-tall men.
Not at all. The text explicitly records their height as being 3,000 ells.
Right. And if we convert that ancient measurement, an L being roughly 18 inches, we arrive at a height of 4,500 feet.
Literally mountains of flesh, entities almost a mile high, just walking across the ancient landscape.
I mean, imagine a plague of kaiju-sized locusts.
Yeah.
You have to completely abandon a human-scaled view of history and imagine a planetary-level ecological disaster.
Because the logistics of entities that massive immediately result in a crisis of resources. The text notes these giants violently consumed all the acquisitions of men.
Every crop grown, every resource harvested was devoured.
And when humanity could no longer mathematically sustain the caloric needs of these titans, the giants turned against the humans themselves.
They began to devour mankind. The ecosystem collapsed entirely, and then they started sinning against the birds, the beasts, the reptiles, the fish.
When there was nothing left, the madness turned inward. They began to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood.
It's just an apocalyptic vision of ravenous, unchecked consumption.
Yeah, eating the very fabric of creation.
But what I find even more compelling is that the physical destruction was only the secondary threat. The primary threat was the intellectual contamination.
Exactly. The angels didn't just bring rogue genetics, they brought forbidden knowledge.
It's like handing a toddler a chainsaw. The text provides a meticulous inventory of which fallen angel taught humanity which specific technology.
It really is a profound window into what the ancient world classified as inherently corrupting. It's like an Enochian variation of the Promethean myth.
But instead of fire being a noble gift for warmth, the knowledge here is a deliberate vector of spiritual disease.
Right. And the most infamous of these dark teachers is Azazel.
Oh, Azazel. The text explicitly states that he taught mankind the art of metallurgy.
Right. He showed them how to extract metals and work them into swords, knives, shields, and breastplates.
The fundamental assertion here is revolutionary, right? The concept of organized warfare, the very idea of forging weapons to slaughter another human being, is not a natural human invention.
No, it's demonic technology introduced from the outside.
That completely reframes the history of human conflict. But the text doesn't stop with the broadsword.
No, in the very same breath, the narrative states that Azazel also taught humanity about bracelets, ornaments, the use of antimony, basically, beautifying the eyelids.
Makeup. He taught them how to make weapons, and he taught them how to apply makeup. To a modern listener, grouping the invention of the sword with the invention of eyeliner seems almost comedic.
It does. But in the ancient theological mindset, vanity and warfare are identical transgressions.
Because both are fundamentally acts of deception and alteration, right?
Exactly. The ancient worldview held that the natural order was perfectly balanced. So digging into the earth, extracting ore, heating it, pounding it into a blade that is an aggressive violation of the natural state of that metal.
And similarly, crushing minerals to paint the face is artificially altering the natural state of the human body.
Both actions manipulate reality. One to enforce violent power over another, the other to enforce aesthetic power and invite lust. Both disrupt the divine equilibrium.
It's an anxiety about humans playing God with the building blocks of reality.
Yeah.
And Azazel is just the beginning.
Right. Samjaza, the leader, teaches enchantments and root cuttings.
The dawn of pharmacological manipulation and dark magic, using plants not for sustenance, but to bend the will of reality.
Then Barakihal and Kokabel rip the veil off the mechanics of the sky. They teach astrology and the constellations.
Giving humans cosmic data they aren't meant to possess.
And then you have the deeply disturbing instruction of Kasdeja. The text attributes to Kasdeja the teaching of the smiting of embryos in the womb.
The ancient origin of abortion.
Yes, alongside the smitings of spirits and demons. And Gadriel is explicitly named as the one who showed humanity the blows of death, the coat of mail, and led Eve astray.
The sheer volume of destructive capability being downloaded into the human consciousness is staggering. But within this catalog, there is one specific angelic teaching that absolutely stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, I know what you're going to say. Penemu.
Yes, Penemu. I mean, you read about angels teaching weapons of mass destruction, and you understand why the author views that as evil. But Penemu is condemned for something entirely different.
He taught humans the bitter and the sweet, and instructed mankind in the secrets of wisdom.
But his ultimate unforgivable sin was this. He instructed mankind in writing with ink and paper.
Which is a phenomenal philosophical detour.
Right. Literacy, which we universally hail as the cornerstone of civilization, is explicitly categorized in Enoch as a demonic corruption that severs the soul from the divine.
Yeah, I mean, the text literally says, through this, their knowledge, they are perishing.
I genuinely struggle to wrap my head around this. Why is the act of putting ink on a page viewed as a spiritual catastrophe?
To understand that, we must look at the profound ancient anxiety surrounding memory and externalized knowledge. We actually see echoes of this in Greek philosophy, too.
Really? Like where?
Like in Plato's Phaedrus. Socrates argues fiercely against the invention of writing, claiming it will introduce forgetfulness into the soul because men will rely on external marks rather than internal memory.
Wow. And the Book of Enoch takes this anxiety and elevates it to cosmic theology.
Exactly. The text states, "For men were not created for such a purpose, to give confirmation to their good faith with pen and ink."
So it's essentially an issue of spiritual integrity.
Precisely. The Enochian worldview posits that humanity was created to mirror the angels perfectly pure and eternally connected to divine truth without physical mediation.
Oh, I see. So if two people exist in a state of absolute spiritual purity and mutual trust, their word is an unbreakable bond.
Right. The moment you introduce a physical contract, the moment you require a promise to be recorded in ink, You are acknowledging a catastrophic breakdown in trust.
You're writing it down because you fundamentally believe the other person is capable of lying.
Writing is the physical scar tissue of a broken spiritual connection. By relying on artificial media to hold truth, humanity severed its direct, intuitive connection to the divine.
That is remarkably resonant with modern anxieties, like how we worry today about offloading our cognition to smartphones.
Yeah, outsourcing our memory to silicon.
The ancient world viewed offloading human promises to paper as a fatal outsourcing of the soul. It's a breathtaking piece of philosophy. But, the philosophical damage is matched by the literal physical devastation of the earth.
Right, because the combined weight of the mile-high giants eating everything and humanity destroying itself with angel tech pushes the planet to the breaking point.
The text states that the earth, entirely devoid of peace, cries up to the very gates of heaven.
And the mechanism of this cry is deeply legalistic. The souls of the dead are assembling. They are making their suit to the Most High.
It's a formal, cosmic class action lawsuit brought by the victims against the divine throne. And the four great archangels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, look down and witness the absolute lawlessness.
They go to God with an administrative crisis. They basically say, you are omniscient. You see the devastation Azazel has unleashed. The souls are screaming, and you haven't given us any orders.
It's a moment of intense narrative tension. The administrators are waiting for the architect to move, and God's multi-pronged response is not just a wave of the hand.
No, it's a highly structured, strategic deployment of the archangels to execute specific protocols of containment. First, Uriel is dispatched to the son of Lamech Noah.
Uriel's mandate is to warn Noah to hide and to reveal that a great deluge is imminent to destroy all flesh.
And what's vital to note here is how this reshapes the familiar biblical flood story.
Right. In the standard Genesis account, the flood is largely a response to general human wickedness.
Yeah.
But in the Enochian framework, the flood is a highly targeted tactical strike.
It's the only viable method to sterilize the earth of the biological contamination of the 4,500-foot-tall Nephilim and the genetic tampering of the Watchers.
It's a cosmic quarantine.
Exactly. Then God issues orders regarding the architects of the disaster. Raphael is commanded to bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness.
Raphael is instructed to split open the desert of Dudael, hurl Azazel into the abyss, and bury him under rough rocks.
He's to cover Azazel's face so he can never see the light again, holding him in containment until the great judgment. And God delivers a profound verdict here, saying, the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin.
Ascribing all sin to an external entity. That is a massive theological pivot. It removes the burden of inherent evil from human nature and places it squarely on foreign spiritual technology.
Yeah. Then Gabriel receives a ruthlessly pragmatic mission. He is sent against the bastards and the reprobates, the children of the Watchers.
But his orders aren't to execute them directly.
Right. He is to manipulate them, to send the giants into a frenzy of mutual destruction, sparking a global war among the Titans so they slaughter each other.
Wow. And finally, Michael is dispatched to arrest Semjaza. His orders are severe.
Yeah.
He must force Semjaza and his cohorts to watch the total annihilation of their giant children.
And once their progeny is eradicated, Michael is to bind Semjaza in the deep valleys of the earth for 70 generations.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The narrative introduces a spectacular narrative irony. These Watchers, incredibly powerful beings who arrogantly rewrote the rules of the universe, are now paralyzed by terror.
The text specifically notes that they are so disgraced and so terrified of God's wrath that they physically cannot lift their eyes toward heaven.
Their direct line of communication with the divine is severed.
So they desperately need an intermediary, a legal advocate.
And who do they turn to? A human. They approach Enoch, the scribe of righteousness, and they ask him to write a petition for them.
They want him to draft a formal plea for forgiveness and to read it in the presence of the Lord.
Let's just appreciate the staggering irony. These exact same angels introduced the corrupting technology of writing to humanity, condemning it as a crutch for broken faith.
Yeah.
Now, terrified, they are begging a human to write a legal petition to save them.
It's perfect. The very tool they use to corrupt mankind is the only tool they have left to attempt their own salvation.
It completely encapsulates their total inversion of cosmic status. So Enoch agrees. He takes the petition, travels to the waters of Dan, and reads the document until he falls into a deep sleep.
And in that sleep, he receives a vision. He is pulled into a profound visionary state and lifted physically into the heavens.
And the architecture of heaven here is unlike anything you'd find in standard depictions. No fluffy white clouds or harps.
No, Enoch's heaven is an intense, terrifying environment of raw energy. He describes approaching a massive wall built entirely out of crystal, surrounded by flickering tongues of fire.
He pushes through the flames into a massive house of crystal. The ceiling is a matrix of stars and lightning. The floor is pure fire. But he observes a profound paradox. The house is hot as fire and cold as ice.
There are no comforts of biological life here, it's pure extremes. The ancient author is trying to describe physics that operate beyond human reality.
It's so intense that Enoch falls flat on his face. And that's just the anteroom. He then sees a second house, infinitely greater, constructed entirely of roaring flames.
Inside is a lofty throne. The base looks like crystal, but the wheels shine with the intensity of the sun. Rivers of flaming fire pour out from underneath.
And seated on the throne is the great glory. God's raiment shines brighter than the sun. The text emphasizes that not even the highest angels can cross the threshold to behold the face of God.
The energy is just too absolute. Yet from the center of this, God speaks directly to Enoch.
And God's message to the watchers via Enoch is an uncompromising rejection. You should intercede for men and not men for you.
It's the ultimate denial. God meticulously lays out the logic of their condemnation, pointing out the absurdity of their rebellion.
Right. They were created as holy, immortal beings, yet they abandoned perfection to lust after flesh and blood.
God explains humans were given reproduction because their bodies die. Angels have no cosmic requirement for reproduction. By deliberately breaching the wall between immortal spirit and mortal biology, they permanently corrupted their nature.
But the judgment doesn't end there. God reveals a horrifying addendum regarding the fate of the giants. When the giants physically die in battle, their corrupted spiritual halves survive.
The text declares that evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies.
This is a crucial theological mechanic. These disembodied entities are condemned to remain on the earth. They are the origin of demons in the Enochian worldview.
And the most chilling detail is that these evil spirits, quote, take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst.
They are immortal, starving ghosts, cursed to roam the earth, causing chaos because they can never satiate the biological desires they inherited from their human mothers.
Nor find the spiritual rest of their angelic fathers. It's a brilliantly constructed system that perfectly explains invisible malice, sickness, and suffering in the ancient world.
They aren't random bad luck. They are the starving remnants of a broken cosmic law.
Right. So having delivered this bad news to the Watchers, angels take Enoch on a tour of the actual mechanics of the universe.
Yeah, from geographical visions to the architecture of the afterlife. The cosmology treats the universe like an intricate clockwork machine requiring constant administration.
Enoch sees the storehouses where winds are physically kept, the cornerstone of the earth.
He's given a backstage pass to the machinery of reality. And we have to connect this back to the opening of the book, where Enoch observes how perfectly nature obeys God.
Exactly. The stars never alter their orbits. The seasons arrive flawlessly. The trees dutifully shed their leaves, except for 14 specific evergreen species.
The point is to draw a stark contrast with the behavior of sentient beings. The physical universe perfectly obeys. It's only angels and mankind that choose to break the machine.
But Enoch also sees what happens when the non-sentient parts malfunction. He visits a prison for the stars.
A desolate void where 7 massive stars are bound in torment because they transgress their appointed times.
The universe tolerates zero deviation from the blueprint.
Moving from stars, he visits the geography of the human afterlife, a massive mountain of hard rock with 4 hollow, dark, smooth chambers.
Raphael explains these are holding pens for the souls of the dead until judgment. It's a vast subterranean waiting room.
But it's meticulously segregated. And Enoch actually sees the spirit of Abel crying out, making suit against his brother Cain, until Cain's seed is wiped from the earth.
The image of Abel as a relentless supernatural prosecutor is just a visceral representation of unresolved justice.
Then Raphael breaks down the division of the dead, a bright spring of water for the righteous, places of pain for sinners who escape justice in life.
A third chamber for victims of murder, and a fourth for sinners who were already judged and slain during their earthly lives. Since they paid a physical price, they just remain in the dark forever.
It's an incredibly legalistic system. Enoch then visits the mountain throne where the Holy Great One will sit. Surrounding it is a fragrant tree, the tree of life,
which no mortal can touch until the judgment, after which it will feed the elect.
He also visits the garden of righteousness and sees the tree of wisdom. And Raphael's commentary here is incredibly casual.
Yeah, he just points at it and essentially says, oh, by the way, this is the exact tree your ancient parents, Adam and Eve, ate from, which got them expelled.
He treats the central catalyst for the fall of humanity like a minor point of interest on a botanical walking tour.
It's fascinating how the text grounds mythological concepts into tangible physical flora.
Which sets up the transition into prophetic parables about the future. Enoch moves from geography to the second parable.
This is massive for literary and historical reasons. Enoch sees the head of days, God the Father, with white hair like wool, and another being the Son of Man or elect one.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this Son of Man is pre-existent, named before the sun and stars.
Right. And prior to this, mainstream Jewish expectation was a human political king who would overthrow empires militarily. Enoch violently disrupts that expectation.
Introducing a cosmic entity whose mandate is to act as the ultimate judge of all creation. The imagery is vivid. Mountains of iron, copper, silver, gold, and lead will melt like wax before the elect one.
A brilliant callback to the sins of the Watchers. Earthly wealth and angelic weapons cannot save corrupt kings. It will liquefy in an instant.
And as we touched on earlier, this heavily mirrors later Christian theology, explaining why the text was both so loved and later so heavily debated. But then the narrative snaps back to the biological anxieties of Enoch's family line.
Right, it jumps to Methuselah, who comes to the ends of the earth to find Enoch. Why? Because Methuselah's son, Lamech, just had a terrifying baby.
Lamech's delivery room scene is so scary he literally flees. The newborn child, Noah, is born with unnaturally white and red skin, long white hair, and eyes that illuminate the whole house like the sun.
And he immediately stands up from the midwife's hands and starts blessing the Lord.
I mean, if my newborn child stands up, shoots solar radiation from his eyes, and starts preaching, my immediate assumption is that something has gone horribly wrong with the genetics.
And that's Lamech's conclusion. He thinks his wife had an affair with a watcher, and this is a newly born Nephilim.
It's that profound, ancient anxiety about the invisible infiltration of demonic forces into human bloodlines. But Enoch reassures Methuselah that the child is fully human.
He names him Noah and explains he will comfort the earth and be saved from the coming deluge.
Before Enoch finishes, he briefly touches on the two great monsters prepared for the day of judgment: the female Leviathan in the ocean abysses, and the male behemoth in the waste wilderness of Duodane.
Ensuring every sphere of reality is woven into a single cohesive plan, and the ultimate codification is when Enoch is shown the heavenly tablets.
A book containing all the deeds of mankind to the remotest generations. And God gives him exactly 1 year to return to Earth.
He's commanded to teach Methuselah, hand over the books, and then he will be taken away forever without experiencing death.
So, what does this all mean? We have journeyed through an unbelievable expanse of ancient thought. A banned book filled with cosmic mechanics, rebellious angels inventing warfare and makeup, and the origins of a global flood.
Which fundamentally shaped ancient historical thought despite being hidden away. It asks deep questions about the origin of evil, positing that human suffering came not just from human failing, but from forbidden knowledge introduced before we were ready for it.
Which brings us to the final provocative thought I want you to mull over. Penemu introduced ink and paper, which the text explicitly says was a corruption. Humans were not created for such a purpose.
Writing is unambiguously condemned.
Yet Enoch is commanded by God to read the heavenly tablets and write down this entire book to pass on to Methuselah. How do we reconcile that the very tool of our corruption writing is the exact mechanism God commands Enoch to use to save the righteous?
It implies that once forbidden technology is introduced, it can't be unlearned. The only path forward is to repurpose it toward the light.
Exactly. So mull that paradox over the next time you pick up a pen or type on a keyboard. You might just be participating in a little bit of ancient forbidden angel magic.